I was just looking for an old photo on his Facebook, but then I saw another profile. Same name, same face, but a different city and a different woman, holding his hand, with 2 kids. My world stopped. It was a Thursday afternoon when Emma's world began to unravel. She sat at her desk, the soft ticking of the clock behind her filling the silent gaps between keystrokes. The house was quiet, unusually so, even for a weekday. The kids were at school. Her husband, Matt, was supposedly at a conference in Seattle, pitching some project his firm had been working on for months. He'd kissed her goodbye 2 days earlier, suitcase in one hand, coffee in the other, whispering promises to call before bed and check in after the big pitch. He had sounded excited, nervous, believable. He always sounded believable. Emma had planned to spend the week organizing the basement and catching up on freelance work. But that afternoon, the Wi-Fi had been spotty. Her files weren't syncing, and after rebooting the router for the 3rd time, she sat idly scrolling through her Facebook feed, just trying to kill time. That's when it happened. A message popped up in her spam folder. A Facebook Messenger request from someone she didn't know. The name Tracy Monroe. No mutual friends. No profile picture. Just a message. "You don't know me, but you need to see this." Emma stared at the screen. For a moment, she thought it was one of those scam messages. Someone trying to hack her account, maybe. She hovered over the message, ready to delete it. But something about it, maybe the tone, maybe the urgency, made her pause. She clicked. A single link. A second Facebook profile. Her stomach twisted before she even opened it. She hesitated, her finger trembling over the trackpad. Then, finally, she clicked. It was Matt, smiling in a family photo, but not with her. There he was, standing beside a woman Emma had never seen before. She looked maybe mid-30s, blonde, wearing a red flannel shirt and holding a toddler on her hip. Matt had his arm around her. They looked like a couple out of a Christmas catalog. The bio read, family man, outdoor enthusiast, husband to the love of my life, blessed dad of 2, but 2. Emma's chest constricted. She scrolled down feverishly. There were dozens of photos. Him at pumpkin patches, birthday parties, beach trips. One image showed him with a little boy on his shoulders, maybe 4 years old. The caption read, "My little man, so proud to be your dad." And Emma couldn't breathe. She blinked rapidly, hoping it was some deep fake, a prank, a bizarre coincidence. But the more she looked, the more she recognized the man in the photos. His smile, his voice in a birthday video singing off-key. The way he held the boy, gently, lovingly, like he'd done with their own daughter, Lily, when she was that age. She clicked over to Tracy Monroe's profile. It was set to private. No posts, no friends list, just the name and the message. But the implication was loud and clear. Emma sat frozen. Her thoughts raced. 100 memories suddenly took on new colors. Late work nights, sudden weekend conferences, business trips that didn't quite line up, text messages he'd shielded from her view. The second phone she once found in his glove compartment. He'd said it was for work. She'd believed him. God, she had believed everything. The front door opened suddenly. Emma jumped, slamming her laptop shut like a guilty teenager. But it was just the mailman. She felt sick. That night, she put the kids to bed early. She didn't call Matt. He hadn't called her either. For the first time in years, she was thankful for his silence. By midnight, she was still wide awake, replaying every moment of the last 10 years. Every "I love you," every weekend getaway, every time he held her hand and looked into her eyes like she was the only woman in the world. Had it all been a lie? She needed answers. So she messaged Tracy back. "Who are you? How do you know him?" The reply came 5 minutes later. "I'm his other wife." Emma's fingers went numb. "He married me 6 years ago. We live in Portland. I didn't know about you until last week. I found photos of your family in his hidden email folder. I'm sorry to drop this on you. I thought you should know." Another message followed. I confronted him. He swore he was going to come clean. Said he was ending it with you. I couldn't believe it. I needed to see if you even existed, and you do. I'm so sorry. Emma stared at the screen, her vision blurred. Her mouth tasted like ash. 2 wives, 2 families, 12 years of marriage, and a double life. She didn't sleep that night. The next day she called in sick, dropped the kids off like normal, pretending everything was fine, forcing smiles she didn't feel. She came home and opened every drawer, every cabinet, every hidden place she could think of. She found a bank statement from an account she didn't know existed. She called the number on the back and asked about transactions. There were charges in Portland, regular ones, grocery stores, gas stations, a daycare. Her husband had been living another life right under her nose. When Matt finally returned Friday evening, Emma was sitting on the couch waiting. The moment the door opened, he smiled at her like he always did. Hey, babe. God, I'm beat. That conference was insane. He set his suitcase down and walked toward her. She didn't smile back. He slowed. What's wrong? Emma stood, her arms crossed. I talked to Tracy. His entire body froze. She watched his expression morph. Confusion, then realization, then fear. Emma, I can explain. She threw the phone onto the couch between them. Explain it then. Explain the second Facebook, the other child, the wedding photos. Explain all of it. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Tears welled in Emma's eyes. You lied to me. For years. For our entire marriage. You had another family. Another wife, Matt. What kind of monster does that? Matt slumped into the armchair, burying his face in his hands. I didn't mean for it to happen, he whispered. Didn't mean for what to happen. Falling in love with someone else, having a child, creating a life that didn't include us. It started before you got pregnant with Lily, he said, eyes glossy. Tracy was supposed to be a fling, but then she got pregnant. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to lose you. I loved you too. Emma felt her knees weaken. She sat down, gripping the edge of the coffee table. You loved me. So you thought having 2 wives would be the solution. He looked away. I thought I could keep it separate. I didn't want to hurt either of you. Emma laughed bitterly. Well, mission accomplished. You hurt everyone. The room was silent for a long time. Finally, she said, Get out. Emma, get out. He didn't argue. He picked up his suitcase, walked out the door, and didn't look back. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers, therapy, and explanations to wide-eyed children who didn't understand why Daddy wasn't coming home. Emma tried to stay strong for Lily and Noah, but at night she would break, cry into her pillow, reread Tracy's messages over and over again. One night, Tracy called her. I left him, she said simply. I couldn't stay, not after knowing what he did to you, to us. They talked for hours. It was surreal, sharing pain with the other woman. But they were both victims, both lied to, both mothers of Matt's children, both rebuilding their lives from rubble. One day, a package arrived at Emma's door. No note, just a small wooden box with a photo inside. It was of Matt, young, maybe 19, holding a girl's hand. Not Emma, not Tracy. Under the photo was a folded newspaper clipping from 2003. Local teen charged with identity fraud and adoption scam. Emma blinked. She searched the name from the article. Mark Raymond Ellis. Not Matthew Carter, her husband. Not even his real name. She called Tracy. She'd received the same box. Neither of them had ever known the real man they married. He was a lie from the very beginning. A ghost who had passed through their lives wearing someone else's face. The truth shattered what little remained. But in that destruction, something strange began to form. A bond. Emma and Tracy eventually met. They brought their children together. They cried, they laughed, they rebuilt. Not just for themselves, but for their kids. For the truth. For the future. And though their stories had been hijacked by betrayal, neither woman would ever again be silenced by it. Emma stood in the kitchen one night a week later, barefoot on the cold tile floor, stirring a pot of mac and cheese while her mind drifted again. She kept seeing his face. Not Matt's. Mark's. That was his real name now. The face of a stranger she had lived with, loved, slept beside, trusted with her body, her children, her future. She'd built a life with someone who didn't even exist. It was worse than infidelity. It was erasure. Her past didn't belong to her anymore. It belonged to a ghost. She opened a bottle of wine. No glass this time, just the bottle and silence. After putting the kids to bed, she returned to her laptop and opened a fresh document. She didn't know why, but she started writing. Every detail, every red flag she had brushed off, every trip, every lie, every gut instinct she had buried for the sake of being the cool wife who trusted her husband. She wrote until 3 a.m. Then she stared at the screen, all 37 pages of it. The next day, she started reaching out. Women's support groups, online communities for people who'd survived relationship deception, double lives, even long-term scams. She shared pieces of her story under a pseudonym. The replies flooded in. Women who said, "I went through this too. I thought I was alone. My husband had another family in Mexico for 10 years. One had 3 separate families across 2 states. It was horrifying and oddly comforting." Emma wasn't alone. Not by a long shot. She kept talking to Tracy. The bond between them deepened, not because they forgave him, but because they understood something most people never would do. What it meant to have your reality shattered, to grieve a living person who never existed. One afternoon, Tracy asked her, "Do you ever wonder who else there might be?" Emma hesitated. "All the time." So they started digging. Together, they pulled old tax records, background checks, phone logs. They even hired a private investigator. 3 weeks later, the investigator called Emma. "Are you sitting down?" She was. "We found another one. Another child. In Reno, Nevada, a woman named Melissa. A son named Carter, age 8. They didn't know how to contact her, but they knew her name now. And they knew that Mark, was far more dangerous than they had initially thought." Emma felt her heart drop into her stomach. This wasn't just betrayal. It was pathology. He wasn't just a liar. He was a predator. She finally went to the police. Took everything: the 2 marriage licenses, the bank accounts, the forged documents, the photos, the false name, the box with the photo from 2003. The detective stared at the pile of evidence. "You said he married you in 2012, Les. And her in 2017. Emma nodded. The detective rubbed his temples. "That's not just adultery. That's felony bigamy, fraud, identity theft, potential endangerment of minors." Emma swallowed. "Will he be arrested?" "If we can find him." He had vanished. Gone, phones disconnected, credit cards canceled. No sign of him at either former workplace. No recent flight records. No car rentals. Gone like smoke. Emma looked at the detective. How does a man live 3 lives for over a decade and then just disappear? He didn't answer. Back home, she locked all her windows and changed the locks on the doors. She signed up for self-defense classes and kept a baseball bat under her bed, not because she was scared, because she was ready. 3 days later, she received a letter. No return address, no name, just her name written in tight, slanted handwriting. Inside, one single line: "I never meant to hurt you, but I never belonged anywhere." The letter was unsigned. She burned it in her kitchen sink. Weeks passed, then months. Slowly, Emma started reclaiming her life. She changed her last name, switched the kids' schools, got a job at a local counseling center helping women going through emotional trauma. She started seeing a therapist twice a week, and with time, her hands stopped shaking when she thought about him. But there was one moment that changed everything again. A knock on the door. It was raining outside. Emma opened the door slowly, and there stood a woman, late 20s, pale, eyes red from crying. "I'm sorry," she said. "Are you Emma?" "Yes. I think he's the father of my daughter." Emma stepped outside, blood roaring in her ears. "What's your name?" "Ashley. I met him 3 years ago. He said his name was Mike Danner. We were never married, but we lived together for a year. He was so kind, until he wasn't. Then he just disappeared. Left me with a baby and a fake address." Emma looked at the child standing beside her, maybe 5 years old. The resemblance was undeniable. Same chin, same eyes. The woman whispered, "I saw your story on that support forum. I recognized the photo. I had to know if I was crazy." Emma didn't cry. She nodded, gently pulled the woman into the house, and poured her a cup of tea. A year passed. 5 women had come forward. 5, each with their own version of him, their own child, their own heartbreak. Emma formed a group, Truth Widows. They called themselves a small, private circle of women bonded not by trauma, but by survival. One night, they all met at a cabin Emma had rented in the mountains. A weekend just for them. They cooked together, laughed, cried, held each other. And they burned something in the fire. The last remaining photos of him. They watched as his face turned to ash. Tracy leaned over and whispered, "Do you think we'll ever see him again?" Emma stared into the flames. "I hope not." But deep down, she knew the truth. He was still out there somewhere. Maybe with another name, another lie, another woman. But this time they had a voice, and they weren't afraid anymore. Because the worst thing that ever happened to them had made them unstoppable.